All right. Well, when I was in 5th grade, I joined a Taekwondo dojo. And my sensei, Master Lee, he was a 5th degree black belt. He was from Korea, and he was awesome. I mean, with every move that he taught us, he would, first demonstrate it, and then he would immediately ask us to try it. I do, and then you do, he would say to us. And each move had some kind of real life situation in mind, like, run at me holding a knife like this. And even when I was 10 years old, I was like, this is really cool. I mean, I didn't know exactly like when in life someone was gonna run at me like holding a knife like this, but still I thought, oh, this is really cool. And Master Lee, he knew that our training was even more practical than that, right? He would frequently remind us, look, I'm not teaching you to fight. I'm teaching you to live with integrity, to live with confidence and with grace. I'm teaching you how to train your body, and not just your body, but your mind and your will. And I learned so much. That was a huge year for me. I learned so much in that dojo. And it was a type of learning that was really different than the rest of my education. At school, there was always a teacher up front talking, and all the students sat facing the front receiving this big data dump. But in the dojo, we were active, And we were finding the edges of our limitations, which is the very place where growth occurs. So I experienced so much growth in that year. And my dojo experience, it seems far more similar to the way that Jesus trained his disciples in the Gospels. Through active learning, through doing. First by watching Jesus do, and then trying it themselves, and then inevitably failing, and then reflecting on it, and then repeating the whole process over again. And so essentially, they were experimenting in the way of Jesus. And we see this experimentation in the Gospel of Matthew. It's in the 10th chapter. Jesus sends out 72 disciples to practice all that they've already seen him do. And he gives them some specific parameters for the experiment. And he instructs them this way. He says, okay, look, don't begin by traveling to some far-off place. Don't try to be dramatic by tackling some big public enemy. First, go to the lost, the confused people right here in the neighborhood. Tell them that the kingdom is here. Bring health to the sick. Touch the untouchables. Kick out demons. Raise the dead even. Because you have been treated generously, so live generously, the Rabbi Jesus says. Don't think that you have to put on a fundraising campaign before you start. You don't need a lot of equipment because you are the equipment. The Rabbi Jesus taught through active learning, through practicing his way. The kingdom of God's love, it's best experienced not simply by listening or by thinking about it, but by actively experimenting with the way. And that's what this word dojo means. It means a place of the way. And, typically it's associated with a karate dojo. Right now, my son Moses and I, we're studying Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But hypothetically, a dojo could be created for any skill, any practice. You could have like a knitting dojo, you could have a cooking dojo, you could even have a Jesus dojo. And my friend Mark Scandrett, he's done this down in the Mission District of San Francisco. He's created a community that experiments in the way of Jesus, and he even wrote a book about it. I totally recommend this to you all. It's called Practicing the Way of Jesus, Life Together in the Kingdom of Love. And this book is going to be a guide for us throughout the month of August here. Because I really think that this is true. I think that so many of us experience a stuckness in our spirituality. I mean, maybe we just feel like we're not going anywhere, we're not growing anymore. We're just stuck. I don't know, is that you? I mean, I feel like that is me, and I'm like a stinking pastor here, right? So, and if we're honest, I think that most of the North American church feels stuck. And here's the thing. I don't think that the answer is more learning to get us unstuck. So I want us to consider that maybe we feel stuck because we rarely move from the place of passive learning about Jesus to an active apprenticeship with Jesus. You know, it's like one thing to admire Jesus, admire what he did and said, which is a way of saying to worship Jesus. But it's another thing to sit at the feet of the rabbi, to take his way of being in the world on as our way of being in the world. You know, sometimes it just feels more comfortable with Jesus who is Lord, the one who saves, than we are with the Jesus who is our rabbi, the one who shows us the way to live in God's kingdom of love. You know, like, just do this kind of thought experiment for a minute here. I think if we were to make a list of like what Christian discipleship looks like today, maybe it might include like, okay, going to church, joining a small group, praying, Bible study, which are all like really good things, but they're very passive in a sense, right? Being taught, receiving. And they're not bad things, definitely good things. But Jesus' first disciples, I think they would have had a very different experience of apprenticeship. They may have said something like this on their list over here, that Jesus often tests our faith and our motives. There's just a high element of risk involved with apprenticeship. That Jesus always took us to places that we would not have gone ourselves. And there, we became friends with people that we normally would have distrusted or even hated before. So it's very much not a passive way. It's an active way. It's a watch me do it, then you do it. And so this is what I really want to invite us to, Salt House, to be a dojo, to be a place for us to put into action this new way of being in the world. I know what I'm going to say next is going to be shocking, but what if we actually did the things that Jesus talked about and did? Crazy, I know. But let's just try and see what happens. Let's just take a month here together and try some experiments. So in preparation for this series, I read through all the teachings of Jesus almost in one sitting. And then I printed off nearly every teaching from the Gospel of Luke. And then I put them in the bowl here so that we could draw them randomly and hear from them in our service together, in this training space together. And there's a lot of them. There's a lot of Jesus sayings, right? So to make it more manageable, to try to follow them, I grouped them into 4 themes or categories for the next 4 weeks. And with each week, we'll be offering experiments and exercises in the way of Jesus, and then invite you to report back. Report back at the beginning of service. How'd that go for you? What was it like? Right? So here's the 4 weeks. Are you ready? Okay. The next week is going to be experiments in identity and community. So asking the question like who am I? And whose am I? You know, Jesus was intimately connected to God, his Abba, and from there formed a diverse community by breaking racial and class barriers, all kinds of barriers. So what if we followed Jesus into that centeredness and communion with God and community with a wide range of people? That's next week. And then week 3 is going to be experiments in purpose to ask the question, gosh, what am I here for? What if we really took Jesus at his word about joining God's dream, God's purpose for humanity, and a life full of meaning? Week 4, experiments in security, asking the question, how will I survive and thrive? What if we really took Jesus at his word about attachment to possessions? Consumerism, money, power. And then lastly, week 5, peace and freedom. Asking the question, how can I respond to suffering and temptation? What if we really took Jesus at his word about our struggles, addictions, our path to healing and confronting injustice and evil. Woof. Woohoo. These are not small topics, Salt House. But we will take small steps each week along the way. You can find actually the exercises now in the bulletin. They're on our site. These are really practical ways to try on the way of Jesus. So go visit it now. Check it out. So are you ready, Salt House? Are you ready to practice in the way of Jesus? Are you ready to take some risks? Are you ready to take a mindset of a beginner, an apprentice, a white belt? Are you ready to try some experiments during the week, then return to us and tell us, how did it go? So this is the invitation for August. Why not dream your whole life up again? Why not reimagine life in the way of Jesus? Taste the intimacy of being God's beloved child. Collaborate with God's creative and redemptive work in the world. Live without worry or jealousy or endless want. Forgive and love as you have never forgiven and loved before. To experience peace in suffering and courage in temptation. That is the invitation that the Rabbi Jesus is offering you. It's possible. It takes practice. So why not? Enter the Jesus Dojo and find out.